Welcome to the wonderful world of dodgy movies. The most anticipated review so far since I started last year is this film, Howard the Duck.
Across the sea of stars lies another world, a world almost exactly like ours. This is where he lives. He's 27 years old, single but searching. Favorite sports, windsurfing and Aikido. Favorite pastimes, cigars and sex. He has everything except fulfillment. And then one night, it happens.
Hey, good buddy, are you home?
He has a very sudden midlife crisis. He lands in Cleveland.
You do know why you were sent to me?
Listen to me, small visitor. I can explain how you got here.
Maybe you're here for some greater purpose, some cosmic cause.
Here, he's forced to reassess his career goals.
You went to med school?
To explore new relationships. To redefine his self-image.
I'm sorry, we don't allow pets on the premises.
To adjust to a changing lifestyle.
Oh, pull it up!
Until he discovers just who he really is.
Oh,
A duck in big trouble.
That's a duck, man!
Howard the Duck, trapped in a world he never made. Coming from George Lucas, a Willard Hike film, a Gloria Katz production.
So, for anyone who's been watching for quite a while, you'll know that one of my favourite dodgy or bad movies, as some people will call it, is Howard the Duck. And last year, for my birthday, I got little Howard here in his battle armour from Galaxy of Champions, the computer game. So, there is Howard, looking pretty awesome, I have to say. So, put you there, Howard. Now, he was created by Steven Gerber from Marvel Comics, and he first appeared in Enter the THOR or something. It was a Man-Thing comic back in 1973. Now, he's from Duck World, which is a world where instead of people evolving from apes, we evolved from ducks. Hence, Howard. And when I look back at my childhood and my teenage years, I realised that there was a lot of programmes and a lot of films that involved ducks. And mostly, they were Disney related. And the irony being that at one point, in the early 80s, after Steve Gerber sued Marvel for a little bit, saying that he had the rights to the character, because he created it, and then lost, Disney then sued Marvel. Because Howard, back then, looked, well, like this. As you can see, Howard was wearing a blue hat, a blue jacket, looks a bit like a certain duck that Disney owns called Donald, was a bit vicious and a bit violent, a bit like a certain Donald. Anyway, so Disney sued Marvel, Disney won, as they always do. So Marvel had to change the look of Howard so he didn't look like Donald. Hey, at least Warner Brothers didn't have to sue Marvel, because, you know, they could have had their own. They technically do have their own duck. Technically it's not DC, but it is Daffy Duck. So, you've got Daffy Duck, you got Donald Duck, and then you got Howard. But that's not the only duck from my childhood, no. We have Darkwing Duck, Scrooge McDuck, and as I've mentioned before when I reviewed Trick or Treat at Halloween, we've got Huey, Dewey and Louie, Daisy Duck, and lots of other ducks. So it just goes on. Disney has a lot of ducks. Then they have the Mighty Ducks. That was also a hockey series of movies, but then there was an animated movie where the hockey players were actually ducks. I'm just saying, ducks took over a large chunk of my childhood. Then, you also have in the 90s, a detective series called Duckman. Yes, an adult cartoon, not for kids, about a detective duck who has an assistant that is a pig and some weird teddy bears, and it was very funny. I liked it. I highly recommend you check that one out because it's bizarre. The 90s were bizarre, just like the 80s, but I don't know, just it seems to have toned down. And then, all of a sudden, Guardians of the Galaxy came out, and in the end credits, Marvel brought back Howard the Duck. To a lot of cult fans like myself who loved Howard back in the 80s, we all cheered. To the others who hate Howard, there were boos. He is like Marmite. Howard is either you love him or you hate him. So, as I said, Howard the Duck was based on a Marvel comic. Now, they have started redoing Howard the Duck comics, and as you can see, Howard has changed a lot from when he was basically a clone of Donald the Duck. Yeah, sorry, Donald doesn't have "the" as his middle name. Donald Duck. He also works with Spider-Man on occasion. And, well, if you watched Endgame, and if you haven't watched Endgame, what are you doing? It's been out for over a week, people. Come on. During the final battle sequence, as the Wasp finally appears, just before Thor, there is in the background as Wasp appears, Howard is in Endgame. So Howard is involved in defeating Thanos. So, there we go. Little spoiler for you.
In these galaxies, every possible reality exists. And what is reality on any one world is mere fantasy on all others. Here, all is real and all is illusion. What is, what was, and what will be start here with the words, "In the beginning there was Howard the Duck."
Now, there are other people out there that have claimed that Howard the Duck and a certain Marvel movie called THOR have a lot of similarities in their plot and storyline. So, go Thor for stealing Howard the Duck's plot. Because they both open with an opening narration. It's both about people from a other world that are sucked down to Earth to a place they don't want to be, that's not theirs, they don't understand it. You get the gist. They're the same film and they fall in love and then there's some sort of, sex thing. I'm gonna avoid talking about all the negatives of this movie because there are so many people that have complained about Howard and how bad the movie is and the fact it's nothing like the comics, the fact that George Lucas put so much money into it, the fact it was a flop when it came out. And I'm going to talk about the things that actually make this film a fun, enjoyable family movie. Yes, people might think, ooh, it's not really for children, but it is. I watched it as a child. The adult humour in all children's films, there's always adult humour by the way, in all children's films, goes over the head of kids. 1, 2, 3, 4!
For the girl. I'll make sure they get it. Yeah, I'll bet. When? When? When Bodacious Beverly stops holding out on me. I'm gonna invite her up to my place tonight for a little career manipulation.
I guess you must be the girl's manager. And if you are, I don't like the way you're talking about Beverly. And I want the girl's money.
Richie? What is that?
Oh, look, Ginger, I warned you when you got into rock management, you'll be dealing with the entertainment types,
Now, this is kind of similar to the comics, in that he does end up in Cleveland in the comics at some point. He doesn't originally end up in Cleveland, but he does get there in the end. And he befriends a human woman called Beverly Switzer. Now, in the comics, she's a model and waitress or something, and in this film, she's a punk rock type chick, dressed a bit like me, singing in a band called Cherry Bomb. So we meet her bandmates and you see a weird version of 1986 where basically in Cleveland it's full of punk rockers and biker chicks that are, well, it feels a bit like a 70s movie, kind of at the start when he first lands in Cleveland. Lesbian bikers that don't like ducks. People using Howard as a way to get in and give a guy who is a nerd a date. Because, you know, if you need a date, you need Howard. Well, he's the perfect date. Now, there's a lot of people out there that claim this film is about interspecies erotica, let's say, to quote Kevin Smith's Clerks 2.
What's that?
This film is not about that.
Maybe it's not a man. You should be looking.
One, he's a flirt, and he just likes to flirt. And he does that in the comics.
Like they say.
At no point in this movie is there any interspecies sex.
Give it a try.
Okay? What you see in the sequence later on in the movie when she's in bed and she tells him to come to bed is a woman letting him sleep in a bed rather than on a sofa, winding the man up because, well, he's been flirting so much that she decides, well, let's see if he can take it back, shall we? Now, there is plenty of movies where women have done that to men before, but because it's a duck, everyone always automatically focuses on the fact, oh my god, she's going to have sex with a duck. At no point does she have sex. She kisses him on the beak. They do not have sex. There is no sex in this film. Okay, there is sex in this film, but it's not between a duck and Beverly. What is wrong with Howard the Duck? If Thor is successful and Thor has the same plot line as Howard, why is Thor successful and Howard not? The problem was people didn't know how to take this movie. George Lucas didn't know how to pitch the movie, and the comic was never really meant to be more than a satire of stuff that was going on at that time. It was a satirical look at life on Earth, a satirical look at, you know, how we're hairless apes, and it's just about a duck. I mean, Donald Duck doesn't have a feature-length movie. I mean, he appears in movies, but he doesn't have his own. Goofy does, because, you know, Goofy's awesome. Duck's full-length movie, maybe that's why it didn't do well. Maybe it's the possibility that people misread certain sequences. Nobody had a problem with frickin' Lorraine Baines wanting to have sex with her son. Oh no, that's fine. She gets into bed with a duck. Oh, people.
Bestiality!
No bestiality was had in this movie. Stop bringing it up, people. This movie is fun. It's ridiculous. And yes, the special effects are excellent, as I've said before. But that is because George Lucas was involved. And if George Lucas is involved, that means Industrial Light and Magic is involved. And they know what they're doing with special effects. We've got an Oscar-winning actor in this film, Tim Robbins.
Man's oldest fantasy. Across a sea of stars, look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's a duck.
Phil, you've got to help us. What are we gonna do?
Nice ducky. Me, Phil. You, Howard. We be friends.
Ugh. Undoubtedly, one of Earth's greatest minds here.
Oh!
Hey, Phil, don't talk to him like that. He's just as smart as you are.
Oh, now I'm really depressed.
Tim Robbins has yet to make a comic book movie that is successful. What do I mean? Well, technically this has become a cult classic, but at the time it was released, it was a flop. He was also in a certain Ryan Reynolds comic book movie that was a huge flop, called Green Lantern. So, I'm blaming Tim Robbins. Tim Robbins can't do comic book movies. And until he does a successful one, that's my line. I'm defending it. He is really funny in this film, and it's a different take on what I'm used to seeing Tim Robbins do, because he tends to be a bit more dramatic. He does do comedy, but when he does, it always feels a bit awkward. And he does a great Donald Duck impression. I'm surprised Disney didn't sue this one as well. But now that they own Marvel, and now that they own George Lucas's Star Wars and everything else, including Fox and soon the world, why don't they just let Donald Duck and Howard the Duck have an adventure together? There you go. 2 birds, 1 stone. Or 1 movie. So, the movie continues. We see them have a breakup relationship, then get back together, and then as they get back together, Philzy, which is Tim Robbins' character, gets hold of a scientist who basically dragged poor Howard to Earth and to Cleveland. Played by the, well, dodgy Jeffrey Jones. Less said about Jeffrey Jones, the better, but anyway, Jeffrey Jones does actually do a very good job in this film of playing a scientist and then playing a possessed scientist. Yes, they redo the experiment, but this time, instead of dragging another duck down, they drag down the Dark Overlords of the Galaxy.
Howard, what? Oh, the laser spectroscope malfunctioned again. There was a tremendous explosion, and then I must have blacked out. I suddenly find myself out here. I'm dead.
Yes, you are.
You think that's funny, Jennings?
I'm not Jennings anymore. The transformation is complete. I am now someone else.
Try telling that to your insurance company.
I think you need some coffee. Come on.
What do the Dark Overlords of the Galaxy look like? Let's see. They look like scorpions with a vagina for a face. Yes, you heard me right. The face of the Dark Overlord, when you finally see it in its actual form, happens to look like a giant vagina with teeth attached to a scorpion body. I never noticed that as a kid. I just saw a hideous monster with teeth and a scorpion-like body. This was something that was explained to me later on when I was a little bit older that, oh my god, I'd never noticed. It's a bit like when you hear a certain song called It's Really Growing on Me and a friend turns around to you and goes, you do know what that's about, right? You go, no. It's about falling in love and the person growing on them? No, it's not about that. It's about some sort of sexually transmitted disease. Okay, thanks for that and ruining that song, shall we say. Howard ends up saving the day and defeating the Dark Overlords of the Galaxy and sending them back to their own world. But by doing so and destroying the equipment that brought him to Earth, he is now trapped. Kind of like what happened in the comics, in that he's trapped on Earth. But he's not really, because he keeps travelling around. He ends up with the Guardians of the Galaxy a few times in the comics and the cartoon series. And he's also become Deadpool. Or Deadpool the Duck. Yeah, in the comics, Deadpool's mind gets stuck in Howard's. So we get Deadpool the Duck. So that's fun. Look, Marvel just needs to, and Disney, just need to get together and go, look. So we've got a duck. It's got a cult following. People enjoy it. And the music was awesome. Personally, I feel like this already exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe anyway. And that if you're going to watch all of the Marvel movies up until Endgame in chronological order, that it should go Captain America, Howard the Duck, Captain Marvel. Because you know what? Howard the Duck can kick Thanos' butt. So you've got different sequences in this movie that are just a bit weird, and you've got some interspecies stuff that's going on, tiny duck condoms. It's a bit adult in its humour, but the Howard the Duck comics were a bit adult. So people, get off your high horses or your high ducks and forget about the fact that this film is bad. It's not. If you want to see a bad movie by George Lucas, let's watch any of the prequels. Let's watch the holiday special, George. You know, that's worse than Howard. But you know what's worse than Howard the Duck? Garbage Pail Kids. That's worse. So stop picking on Howard. Howard did nothing wrong. All he did was be a duck that was white, who happened to look a bit like another white duck. If he looked like this, a yellow duck, which on occasion he has done in the comic, by the way, it would have been fine. But Disney sued. Disney then bought Marvel, and now Disney owns Howard. Sorry, Howard. You're owned by Disney now, so you need to go kick Donald's ass. The movie is fun. The movie is bizarre, and I will admit it's a bit of a mixed match of stories. It's like a weird romantic comedy that becomes a sci-fi adventure film at the end, and if you didn't know it was based on a comic book, it'd be fine. Because everyone knows it's Marvel, everyone picks on it because it's a duck. Nobody picks on Wolverine. Nobody picks on... Okay, they pick on some of the Marvel characters. You might not believe it. You might not want to believe it. But it's a good film. Every film has its moments. But at least the people in this film can act. We're having fun. And, well, they're nothing like watching The Room or Garbage Pail Kids, because those are some very bad films. Or Birdemic. The people can act. The special effects are good. The story is good. So good that Disney and Marvel took the story, redid it as THOR. Come on, people. Stop picking on Howard just because he's a duck. So he's a cigar-chomping, flirtatious duck who likes women and hangs out with a human woman, possibly hoping for a relationship. In the comics at one point, he did get made human. So, is that wrong? If he did end up with Beverly? Look, you can't help who you fall in love with. But please, stop saying that Beverly and Howard had sex. They didn't. All they did was kiss. But before I go, I want to point out that the music in this film, sung by the Cherry Bombs, and that is Leah Thompson and the rest of the girls from the Cherry Bombs in the film singing, is awesome. True, Leah Thompson has some stuff to explain in regards to the final dance sequence, which is clearly a rip-off of what Marty did at the end of Back to the Future.
What's this? Rock and roll! I give you yeah! Beat me, baby! Get that hot enough for you?
Watch Howard the Duck. And can I just please ask people, if you find a clip, because I've been searching for one for days, because I remember as a child, BBC introduced this as Howard, a New Breed of Hero, and it had a different opening sequence to the film where the narrator actually says, Howard. And then it doesn't say the duck, and New Breed of Hero comes on the screen. If you find that, send it my way, because I need to be like proving the point that this is not right. He is Howard the Duck. He's not a new breed of hero. He is a hero. Which is why he built this suit, which is why he can kick Juggernaut's ass. And if you know the game, you know that he can. Okay. So, hit that subscribe button. Comment down below. Give me a thumbs up. And remember, folks, there's a lot of dodgy movies out there, but Howard's not one of them. Bye.
Not bad for a duck from outer space.
You were great, Ducky.